Hey everyone, welcome to this deep dive. And today we are going to be looking at retirement savings.
Ooh,
I
exciting.
know, right? Super exciting stuff, but actually, it's something that I think we all kind of think about,
Hmm.
you know, and get a little stressed about sometimes. We're going to try to unpack some of that today.
Absolutely, yeah, it's a
I,
big one.
yeah, and so for this deep dive, we are using data from the 2022 Survey of Consumer Finances. So this is a really robust source of information, and it's the most recent picture we have of what's going on with retirement savings across the U.S.
I'm excited to dig into this one. It's always fascinating to see where people stand.
Yeah, and the thing that I always find so interesting is that we can look at like the raw numbers, but the why behind those numbers is
Yeah.
where things get really juicy,
Yep,
right?
that's where the real insights come in.
Yeah.
Understand not just the what, but the why.
Exactly. And that's where your expertise really shines. So get ready to drop some knowledge bombs on us today.
All right, I'm ready.
Okay, so let's just jump right in. And we're going to start with, I guess, the big reveal, right? The average retirement savings across all families in the U.S., and drum roll, please, it is $333,940.
Wow, that sounds like a lot.
Right. It
Yeah.
does sound like a pretty impressive chunk of change, but before we all, start celebrating, we've got to look at the other side of the coin. The median savings is just $87,000.
Okay, now that's a significant difference. So what's going on there?
Yeah. So this is where we have to be really careful about how we interpret these numbers, right? Averages can be super misleading, especially when you have outliers on both ends of the spectrum. Like you have folks with, millions tucked away, and then others who are struggling to even make ends meet.
Yeah, those outliers can really skew the picture. The median tends to give us a more realistic view of where the typical person stands.
Exactly. So remember, as we're going through these numbers, this deep dive is really about your individual situation, your goals, not just comparing yourself to some abstract national average.
It's about understanding the landscape and then figuring out where you fit in.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's get a little more granular here and look at how these savings numbers break down by age group. See how things change as people move through different life stages.
Sounds good. I'm curious to see the trends.
Yeah, me too. So let's start with the younger folks, under 35, just starting out their careers, maybe figuring out this whole adulting thing.
Yeah, those early years can be tough financially.
For sure. So in this age group, the average savings are around $49,130, but the median is only $18,880.
Okay, so it's still a pretty big gap between the average and the median there.
Yeah, and I'm imagining for a lot of folks in this age group, retirement feels like a lifetime away. They're dealing with student loans, maybe trying to buy a house, starting a family. There's a lot of competing priorities.
Absolutely. And let's not forget that systemic factors come into play too. For instance, statistically speaking, white families are more likely to hold retirement accounts than Black or Hispanic families.
That's a really important point. It's not a level playing field for everyone, and those early opportunities to save can have a huge impact down the line.
You got it. Those early years can set the stage for future financial success or challenges.
Okay. So moving on to the next age bracket, 35 to 44, things are starting to get a little more real. Maybe retirement isn't such a distant concept anymore.
Yeah, they're probably starting to feel that midlife crunch.
Right. So the average savings for this group jumps up to $141,520. But the median is still lagging behind at $45,000.
Still a pretty significant gap there.
Yeah, and I'm guessing this is where things like mortgages, kids, maybe even supporting aging parents start to really take a toll on the budget.
Oh, absolutely. This is often the peak of competing financial demands. In this age bracket, feeling completely overwhelmed, like they'll never catch up on their retirement goals.
It's understandable to feel that way, like you're constantly juggling priorities.
Right. It's all about finding that balance.
Okay, so we've got the under 35s, the 35 to 44s. Now let's move on to the 45 to 54-year-olds. Retirement is definitely on the horizon now.
It's getting real for this group.
Right. And their savings reflect that the average here is $313,220. But once again, that median is lower at $115,000.
So you're seeing a pattern here. Those averages are pretty impressive, but the median suggests that a lot of people might be feeling that squeeze.
Exactly. And I imagine there are a lot of factors at play here. People might be starting to think about college costs for their kids, maybe downsizing or upgrading their homes. It's a time of big transitions, and those transitions can definitely impact retirement planning.
No doubt about it. It's all about finding that balance between current needs and future goals.
Exactly. And we'll dig into some of those factors in more detail later on. But first, let's keep moving through our age groups. We've got the 55 to 64-year-olds. They're probably starting to taste that freedom, right? Retirement is just around the corner.
They're probably feeling a mix of excitement and maybe a little bit of anxiety.
Right. So the average savings here climbed to $537,560 with a median of $185,000. So those averages are getting pretty up there, but still, that gap between the average and the median is pretty striking.
It's a reminder that we need to look beyond the averages and understand the individual stories behind the numbers.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to the 65 to 74-year-olds. They're in the thick of it now, enjoying those golden years, hopefully. And they've got an average savings of $609,230 with a median of $200,000.
Okay, so even though they're likely drawing on their savings, those numbers are still pretty impressive.
It's encouraging to see, right? It shows that it is possible to build a nest egg that can support you through retirement.
It definitely gives us some hope.
Okay, and finally, we have the 75 and older crowd. They've been through it all, and the average savings for this group dips down to $462,410 with a median of $130,000.
It's interesting to see that dip, but I imagine there's a lot of variation within this age group. Health issues, unexpected expenses, inheritances, all those things can really impact savings.
That's a great point. Everyone's story is different, and these numbers are just a snapshot in time.
Exactly. So let's keep that in mind as we move forward.
Okay, so we've thrown around a lot of numbers here, but now let's get to the heart of the matter. What are some of the key factors that influence how much people are able to save for retirement?
Yeah.
What are those levers that people can actually pull to boost their savings?
All right, let's break it down.
Yeah, let's do it. Okay, so we've got all these factors swirling around income and lifestyle and life expectancy, but let's bring it back down to earth for a second. What can people actually do to feel more confident about their retirement savings?
Yeah, let's get practical.
Right.
Yeah.
Because knowledge is power, but it's the action that really makes the difference.
Absolutely. So let's talk strategy.
All right, so let's start with the most obvious one, saving. It sounds simple, but sometimes the hardest part is just getting started. What advice do you give to folks who are feeling stuck? Maybe they're just not sure where to begin.
Yeah, inertia is a powerful force. So what are the most effective strategies I recommend is automation. Set up an automatic transfer from your checking account to your savings and retirement account.
It's kind of like out of sight, out of mind.
Exactly. And the beauty of it is you don't even have to think about it. Just set it and forget it.
I love that. And even if it's a small amount, it's like $25 or $50 per week, that can really add up over time.
Oh, absolutely. Especially with the magic of compounding, those early contributions can really snowball over the long term.
Right. It's like paying yourself first before you even have a chance to spend it. That money is already working toward your future.
Exactly. Prioritize your future self.
Love it. Okay, so what about folks who are already saving something, but maybe not as much as they'd like? Any tips for boosting those contributions?
Yeah, definitely. So first, I'd suggest looking at your employer-sponsored retirement plan if you have one. Are you contributing enough to get the full employer match?
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
Huge. It's essentially free money, so don't leave it on the table.
Right. It's like an instant return on your investment.
Exactly. Maximize those benefits.
Okay. But what about folks who are self-employed or don't have access to a 401k? What are their options?
Well, individual retirement accounts or IRAs are a great option for those folks. They offer tax advantages and a variety of investment choices, making them a really flexible tool for retirement savings.
Okay. IRAs, yeah, I've heard of those. But to be honest, I'm a little fuzzy on the details. Could you break down the different types and who they might be best suited for?
Sure. So the two main types are traditional and Roth IRAs. With a traditional IRA, you contribute pre-tax dollars, meaning you get a tax deduction up front, but you'll pay taxes on withdrawals in retirement.
Okay, that makes sense.
With a Roth IRA, you contribute after-tax dollars, so there's no upfront deduction, but your withdrawals in retirement are tax-free.
So which one's better?
Well, it really depends on your individual circumstances. If you anticipate being in a lower tax bracket in retirement, a traditional IRA might be more advantageous. But if you expect to be in a higher tax bracket later on, a Roth IRA could be the better choice. It's a bit nuanced. So it's always wise to consult with a financial advisor to determine what's best for you.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's not a one-size-fits-all situation. Okay, so we've covered automatic savings and maximizing retirement accounts. But I know for a lot of people, just finding that extra money to save can feel like a real struggle.
Hmm?
Any advice on how to free up some cash flow?
Absolutely. So I always recommend taking a close look at your spending habits. Track where your money is going for a month or two. You might be surprised by how much you're spending on things you don't really need or value.
Oh, I know. I'd be terrified to do that, but you're right. It's probably eye-opening.
It can be, but it's also empowering because once you see where your money's going, you can start making conscious choices about where you want it to go.
So it's about awareness and then action.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So once you've identified those areas where you could potentially cut back, it's about making those conscious choices. Can you cut back on dining out? Or those daily lattes, maybe downgrade your cable package or cancel subscriptions. You're not really using small adjustments can add up over time.
It's all about prioritizing, right? Deciding what's more important, that extra streaming service or a more secure retirement. And sometimes it's not just about cutting back, it's about finding ways to increase your income. Could you ask for a raise at work, negotiate a higher starting salary for a new job, maybe even explore a side hustle?
Absolutely. Those are all great options. Diversifying your income streams can create more financial security and flexibility.
I love that. Okay, so we've talked about saving more, but what about making those savings work harder for you? I know you're an investment guru, so give us the inside scoop. What are some key investment strategies for retirement?
All right, let's dive into the exciting world of investing. But first, a little disclaimer, investing involves risk. There are no guarantees.
Right. Got to keep it real.
But over the long term, the stock market has historically provided higher returns than more conservative investments like bonds or cash.
Right. That's the whole high risk, high reward concept.
Exactly. But how much risk you should take with your retirement savings really depends on your individual risk tolerance, time horizon, and financial goals.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
Nope. It's all about finding the right fit for you. Someone in their 20s or 30s with a long time horizon can typically afford to take on more risk than someone nearing retirement.
Makes sense. So what are some common mistakes people make when investing for retirement? Things to watch out for.
One of the biggest mistakes is trying to time the market, jumping in and out of investments based on short-term fluctuations. It's tempting, but rarely successful.
Yeah, I can imagine that getting you into trouble.
A much more effective strategy is to invest consistently over time, regardless of market ups and downs. This is known as dollar cost averaging, and it helps to smooth out the volatility and reduce your overall risk.
Okay, so consistency and patience are key.
Absolutely. And then there's diversification, spreading your investments across different asset classes, stocks, bonds, real estate, and so on.
Don't put all your eggs in one basket, right?
Exactly. By diversifying, you reduce the risk that any single investment will wipe out your entire portfolio.
So it's about balancing those risks and rewards, finding the right mix of investments that aligns with your goals and your comfort level.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about saving more, investing wisely, and even boosting your income. But I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier, unexpected life events, those curveballs that can throw even the best laid plans off course. How can people build more resilience into their financial plans to weather those storms?
Great question. One of the most important things is to have an emergency fund. This is a separate savings account specifically for unexpected expenses, job loss, medical bills, car repairs, that sort of thing.
So it's like a financial safety net to cushion the blow of those unexpected events. How much should people aim to have in their emergency fund?
The general rule of thumb is to have 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses saved up. This will vary depending on your individual circumstances, but it's a good starting point.
Okay, that makes sense. It's peace of mind knowing that you have a buffer if something unexpected happens. What are some other strategies for building financial resilience?
Another important step is to make sure you have adequate insurance coverage, health insurance, disability insurance, life insurance. These can help protect you and your family from financial hardship in the event of illness, injury, or death.
Right. Not the most fun topic to think about, but definitely crucial to have those safety nets in place.
And I'd also suggest thinking about ways to reduce your debt burden. High interest debt, like credit card debt, can really eat into your savings potential focus on paying down those debts as quickly as possible to free up more cash flow for savings and investment.
So it's like a two-pronged approach, building up your savings while also minimizing your debt. Smart.
Exactly.
Okay, we've covered a lot of ground here, but I want to touch on one more important aspect of financial resilience, and that's mindset. It's not just about the numbers, it's about how you approach and manage your finances.
Oh, absolutely. Your mindset can have a huge impact on your financial success. If you approach your finances with fear and scarcity, you're likely to make impulsive decisions or avoid taking necessary risks. But if you cultivate a mindset of abundance and empowerment, you're more likely to make thoughtful choices and achieve your financial goals.
So it's about shifting your perspective, focusing on what you can control, and believing in your ability to create a secure and fulfilling financial future for yourself.
Exactly. And remember, financial planning isn't a one-time event. It's an ongoing process that requires regular check-ins and adjustments. Your life circumstances will change, your goals will evolve, and the financial landscape will shift. Be flexible, be adaptable, and don't be afraid to seek professional guidance when needed.
Such a great point. Financial planning is a journey, not a destination. And speaking of journeys, we've explored the numbers, the strategies, the mindset, but now let's talk about the destination itself. What does a fulfilling retirement actually look like, beyond the financial aspect?
Exactly, because what's the point of accumulating all this wealth if you haven't given any thought to how you're actually going to spend your time and energy? And it's never too early to start thinking about this. What activities bring you joy? What have you always wanted to learn or explore? Are there volunteer opportunities that align with your values? Start dabbling in those things now, build those connections, nurture those passions. It'll make the transition to retirement so much smoother and more fulfilling.
I love that. So it's about designing a life that feels rich and meaningful, beyond just the leisure and relaxation.
Exactly. And remember, retirement isn't an ending. It's a new beginning, a chance to redefine yourself and create a life that truly reflects your values and priorities.
So listeners, as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a challenge. Take some time this week to reflect on your vision for retirement. What does your ideal day look like? What activities bring you joy? What kind of impact do you want to make on the world? And then start taking small steps to bring that vision to life. Remember, retirement isn't an end. It's a beginning. It's an opportunity to create a life you love, one that's rich with purpose, connection, and joy.
And don't forget to enjoy the journey.
That's such great advice. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. We hope you found it informative, inspiring, and maybe even a little bit life-changing.
Happy planning.
And happy retirement.